Is it possible to get a premium business class experience from a low-cost carrier? Well, I decided to find out by booking a flight from Kuala Lumpur back to Sydney on board AirAsia in their premium flatbed cabin for less than $800. AirAsia claimed to be the world's best low-cost airline, but to be honest, I don't have much experience with low-cost carriers to compare to. The entrance to Terminal 2 at KLIA is a bit of a strange one, and I didn't really know where I was going at first. I got dropped off and walked into what I assumed would be the check-in area, but instead I found myself in something more akin to a shopping centre. Not knowing what to do, I just kept walking until I eventually arrived at more signage with directions to check-in counters. T2 at KLIA is known as the low-cost carrier terminal and has a lot of AirAsia and AirAsia X flights. Thankfully, they split up the check-in and bag drop for the flights across multiple sections, so it didn't look or feel as busy as you would think. Most people were using the self-serve kiosks, but as part of my premium flatbed ticket, I was able to use the priority check-in counter and didn't have to wait long at all. The premium package also included priority checked-in luggage of up to 40 kilos. One of the best on-ground perks was the fast pass through immigration. The regular queue was pretty long and I completely skipped it. The good news is, even if you're flying in economy, you can add on this fast pass perk for only $30, and it comes complete with priority check-in, boarding, and even slightly more carry-on allowance. Once airside, I made the long trek out to the queue gates and eventually ended up in a fairly normal-looking terminal space. I'd heard some pretty bad things about the low-cost terminal at KL, so this was a pleasant surprise to be honest. The premium flatbed ticket also comes with complimentary 3-hour access to the Plaza Premium Lounge when flying out of Kuala Lumpur, but I didn't know about this until later on. Instead, I treated myself to some of the finest local cuisine at Macca's. It's actually quite fun to eat at McDonald's around the world and compare what different markets have to offer. I also didn't know what the food situation would be like on board, so I thought it was best to eat ahead of time just in case. It was another long walk to my gate, and once I got there, I couldn't see the plane. So here's footage of another AirAsia X A330 that was parked a few gates down. AirAsia X has a few different layouts of these, and mine was on the more common Type A configuration, with just 2 rows of premium flatbed cabin. One of the other layouts is on an ex-Philippine Airlines plane and has a significantly better hard product in both cabins. Boarding started and I raced forward to utilise my fast pass and get maximum bum-in seat time in my premium flatbed. This A330 is in a dense configuration with almost 400 seats on board. At the front are the 12 business class seats with 2 rows of a 2-2-2 layout. While it is nice to have extra room, it does mean that not every seat has direct aisle access. The rest of the aircraft has 365 economy seats in a tight 3-3-3 9 across layout, whereas the A330 usually comes in a more roomy 8 across 2-4-2. The forwardmost economy cabin is sold as an upgrade to quiet zone. Children under 10 are not allowed, and you're supposed to get your meals served first as well. Finally, I made it to the exclusive pointy end of the plane, to my seat 2K. Given nobody else had arrived yet, I took the opportunity to get some shots of the entire cabin without disturbing anyone. First impressions were good. The cabin was clean and tidy, with each seat already being laid out with a pillow and a bottle of water. The basic seat design has been a perfectly acceptable standard for business class over the last decade. However, there is one obvious omission which makes this a low-cost version. There is absolutely zero IFE on offer, no screen or iPad tablet at all. Anyway, having a closer look at my seat. There was a pillow and water as mentioned before. In front of me was, well, not much. Legroom and foot space while seated was excellent, no complaints here. Obviously, no IFE screen, but there was a small literature pocket with a magazine and food options to buy on board. In the middle were a couple of storage slots, and just under that was a decent cubbyhole which my seatmate and I used for our shoes. On the side were the seat controls, and in the middle was the fold-out sliding table, nothing remarkable here. Between the seats were universal power outlets, which was a surprising premium touch I wasn't expecting. There was also a footrest, which comes in handy to stop you sliding down the seat when in bed mode. As you can tell, privacy isn't really a thing with these seats, but there is a small divider to help you separate from your neighbour. The aisle seat is very exposed, so I'd recommend one of the 4 window seats if you're after any sort of privacy at all. But remember, without direct aisle access, a window seat means you will have to jump over your seatmate to get out during the flight. This can be somewhat tricky, as I found out later on in the flight. AirAsia has a range of hot food available to purchase on board or pre-order before the flight. As part of my premium ticket, I had one meal included in the price, but I paid extra for a second meal as the price was very reasonable in my opinion. Plus, I'd heard about Uncle Chin's rice and had to give it a go. Once we were up in the air, I could finally recline and relax in my premium seat. This is what it looks like partially reclined, and it's exactly what you'd expect. Nice and comfortable, and obviously leaps and bounds ahead of economy in terms of comfort. The seat continues to recline into a flatbed as advertised. However, it's not actually flat to the ground and has a slight slope to it, dropping away towards the feet. This type of slightly angled flatbed was very common for business class over the last decade. It's a bit outdated now by proper business class standards, but I think given the airline, pricing and target market, it's still an acceptable standard of seat and bed. Obviously, there was no mattress topper or anything fancy like that, but the blanket was cozy. The dinner service began and the crew asked if I would like to have both meals at once or one now and one later on. Given I'd already stuffed myself with Macca's, I just went for the single meal. I couldn't resist and had to start with Uncle Chin's chicken rice. I paid extra to get a can of Coke and some ice, and the meal came with a small bottle of water as well. Honestly, it was pretty good and tasted nice with some of the sauces mixed in. Even if your ticket doesn't include a meal, it's well worth the few dollars it would cost to buy on board. It's also worth mentioning that the meals are the same across both cabins. Premium flatbed class doesn't actually get you any better food or drinks. After dinner, I went for a quick lap of the plane and the economy section was absolutely packed. There were only about half a dozen free seats on the entire plane. Unfortunately, it looked like the toilets could have used some more attention as it wasn't in the best shape when I visited. But apart from the excess rubbish and TP shortage, the facilities were as expected for an average aircraft toilet. With nothing else to do and approaching 2 AM in KL time, it was time to call it a night and get some rest. It's a bit hard to see, but we passed some interesting lights in the middle of nowhere over the water. I woke up after a solid 5.5 hours sleep and the sun was well and truly up, with some people already having their blinds open. Getting back up from the bed position was easy thanks to the conveniently located controls next to my head. But getting out of the seat to go to the bathroom without disturbing your seatmate is quite difficult, unless you have super long legs or are particularly nimble. We made our way across the vast Australian landscape, and one of the crew came and asked if I'd like to have my second meal now. I didn't bother buying an extra drink this time, and I'd pre-selected the prawn and chicken wonton noodles as the dish. I like noodles and I like wontons, so really nothing to complain about here either. The food was fine, and again, for the price it was perfectly acceptable and worth trying. I'd rather spend a few dollars to wake up and have something to eat, instead of waking up and feeling hungry. I did another lap of the plane to stretch my legs, and basically spent the rest of the flight just sitting in my seat and looking out the window. So back to my original question. Is it possible to get a business class-like experience from a low-cost carrier? Well, I think it comes down to what you value in a flight. Personally, my order of importance is the seat, the ground experience, the onboard service, the food, and lastly, the amenities and any extras like infotainment or Wi-Fi. Given this was a late night departure, all I really wanted was a bed to sleep in, and on that front, AirAsia X certainly delivered. Being able to sleep in a business class style bed for less than the price that other airlines would charge for premium economy is a definite win. Despite making a rookie error and not visiting the lounge, the ground experience at KL was also a positive for me. Skipping the immigration queue was amazing, and I love that you can purchase this as an upgrade even if you're flying economy. Clearly not a lot of people opt for this add-on, and it was well worth it for my visit. The priority boarding also worked a treat and would be beneficial to claim some overhead space if you're flying economy. In terms of onboard experience, the crew were polite, but given the basic level of service, we didn't have much interaction other than serving me food. I'm a sucker for airline food, and I love both Uncle Chin's chicken rice and the wonton noodles. I understand that it's a low-cost carrier, but it's still annoying that you have to pay extra for drinks. Even Southwest offers free soft drinks on flights in the US, so surely AirAsia could spend a few extra dollars on the premium customers. Normally, the closest competitors to AirAsia X would be Scoot and Jetstar when flying economy. But if we're comparing the premium cabins, Scoot Plus and Jetstar Business are way behind on their seats. If you can bring your own entertainment and are happy to pay for some drinks during the flight, I'd say AirAsia's premium flatbed class is a compelling alternative to regular full-service airlines like Malaysian, Thai, Qantas or Singapore Airlines in business class, and of course an absolute no-brainer compared to premium economy. Of course, you won't earn any meaningful status or points on AirAsia, but once you consider the price difference, it really is worth trying at least once.